Hey everybody, welcome back to Jay's Fit Down Football Podcast. I'm your host, Jane Gay, back with more football content here. Today we're going to be talking about some NFL hot news, topics going around the league right now. But before we get started, we just want to tell you guys, please like, subscribe. We're on YouTube. Subscribe to us, share it to your friends. We got all the best content you got for NFL, college football, high school football, everything you want to know. But yeah, so the main thing I'm going to talk about here today on the podcast is Jaire Alexander, cornerback for the Green Bay Packers, just signed a 4-year, $84 million extension. He only played 4 games last year for Green Bay. He was hurt most of the year with a shoulder injury. Came back in the playoffs. Of course, Packers did lose in the divisional round against the San Francisco 49ers. But so Jaire now is the highest paid cornerback in the NFL. Do I think that this deal was deserved? Yeah, kind of. Honestly, Jaire Alexander is a great cornerback, one of the best in the league, especially when he's healthy. But he hasn't been healthy in a while. So I would just have to see him play a full season in order to fully determine, I think, whether he is deserving of such a big contract, because he right now is the highest paid cornerback in the league, topping guys like Denzel Ward and Jalen Ramsey, of course, with the Rams and the Browns, those guys with those teams. And the Packers have invested into their cornerback room. Recently they added Eric Stokes out of Georgia last year in the 21 draft, and they signed back Rasul Douglas to a 3-year, $21 million deal. So they obviously are investing in that part of the defense in the back end, the secondary. The Packers have struggled recently in pass coverage, and that's their defense has kind of hurt them the past couple of years. But really offensively is where they need the most attention. Obviously, they lost Devontae Adams as we all know, to the Raiders. They traded him away. Aaron Rodgers said he's coming back. And they drafted Christian Watson, receiver out of North Dakota State University, in the first round. So obviously they're like, okay, let's get Aaron Rodgers a receiver finally in the draft, which what I'm sure all Packers fans have been waiting for them to do, because they haven't really done that over the last couple of years. But they finally added a receiver in the draft to help out Aaron Rodgers. But I still don't think the Packers are there yet, because they still have a lot more holes they need to fix, especially on the offensive line. Tight ends is a spot they really need to address as far as finding a solid, consistent piece there. So I just thought that was interesting. Jaire Alexander led the Packers in pass breakups in each of his first 3 seasons. He was drafted in 2018. He had the 4th most pass breakups in the league from 2018 to 2020 with 42. So Jaire is a great, as I say, he's a great cornerback. Great skills, good ball hawking skills as well. Plays great man coverage, plays good in zone coverage as well. One of the underrated cornerbacks, in the league. Most people talk about obviously Jalen Ramsey or Denzel Ward. Those guys like that. Those cornerbacks. But they don't mention guys like Jaire Alexander, who is a very good corner, and he's still very young. He was just drafted in 2018, a couple of years ago, struggled with the injury bug. But once he gets I feel like once the Packers finally continue to bolster up that defense and add to it over the next couple of years throughout the draft, and through free agency, just started to build it up and build a new, identity on that defense, because really the Packers have lacked an identity on that defense. Every team in the league usually has an identity on their defensive side of the ball. Obviously the offensive side, but also you need one on the defensive side. Your defense has to have a mantra, an identity to where, hey, we're going to get after you, like the Rams, that their pass rush is what they're known for. We're going to get after you. We're going to just bull rush and just destroy your offensive linemen and get back to your quarterback and sack them, a bunch of times in the game, teams like that. Or you got the coverage team, you got like the Vikings and their defense. They play a lot of coverage. They're teams like that. So, and everybody's got their own identity, like in the Cowboys with their defense, they like the ball hawk, get the ball away from you, take the ball for interceptions. Obviously, Trayvon Diggs led the league in interceptions last year with 12, which is still astonishing. Because that's very hard. People ask the hardest position in football, is Of course, it depends on who you ask. You ask a quarterback, he's going to say, yeah, quarterback, right? If you ask a cornerback, he's going to say, well, corner. That's the hardest position in the league. Or if you ask an offensive lineman, they'll say, well, offensive lineman, right? But, honestly, I think that the hardest position in football on any level is corner. I mean, because you think about it, you have to guard all these receivers. They're shifty, they're fast, they can run their routes so well. And now as the league is, it's upgrading, and all these guys coming up into the league through college and everything like that, they're just finding new ways to run their routes, and they can catch the ball this way and that way and all this type of stuff. And it's really got to the point where corners are struggling because the game is changing so many ways, and now you have pass happy offenses now. Like since around from like 2014 on through now, the league, the NFL and college football has gotten to be more pass happy. A lot of offenses are passing the ball more. There's disguising different coverages to, in different routes and things like that, which makes it hard on these defenses. When you got guys like offensive minds like Kyle Shanahan and Sean McVay, Sean Payton, guys like that who've over the years developed an identity for creating all these different ways to get their players involved offensively. Defense doesn't know which way the ball is going, so it made it hard on corners as well, and that's just a really hard position to play. It's so many things involved with it, your eyes, your feet, your hands, your hip movement, all those types of things. And my corners, can quote me on this in the comments, like, it's a fight out there, one-on-one on the island, you're by yourself, you're with that receiver, you and the receiver, somebody's got to make a play, you got to stop him. And his goal is to get the ball and, of course, score, right? That's his goal. So, very hard thing to do. But yeah, I just want to talk about that briefly for a minute, and think how I think Jaire Alexander is, since he gets this contract, how is he going to perform in the next couple of years? He's going to be coming back next year off of being fully healthy from a shoulder injury that he sustained that kept him out for a majority of the season last year. Like I said, he came back into the playoffs, but at that point the Packers, were done as they lost in the divisional round against the San Francisco 49ers. Next point on the list, guys, is as you probably have heard, Drew Brees, the former New Orleans Saints quarterback, Super Bowl champ, NFL all-time passing yards leader briefly. He has been dismissed by NBC. He joined the team as a broadcaster last year after he retired after the 2020 season. He joined NBC as a broadcaster, but he was dismissed because apparently people didn't like him up in the booth. They thought he was like annoying. They didn't like Drew Brees up in the booth. And broadcasting is something that not everybody is good at. Lots of people have complained, recently about, people don't like Joe Buck and Troy Aikman. A lot of people aren't fans of those two broadcasting, especially Joe Buck. A lot of people don't like his voice. I think his voice is very annoying. But it's a thing that everybody can do, and that more and more players, you see more and more former players are getting into the broadcasting realm right now. For example, Greg Olsen, he's in the broadcasting world with Fox. A lot of these former players, Aqib Talib, used to play cornerback in the league. Jonathan Vilma used to play linebacker for the Saints, now broadcasting for Fox. So a lot of players are moving into the broadcasting world after their retirement. Luke Kuechly as well, getting into action with ESPN and things like that. So, but Drew Brees decided, he went to NBC. Was going to join that team last year, broadcasted some games. But a lot of people weren't a fan of him. Ratings apparently went down because of that. So NBC said, "Hey, buddy, you're gone, man. We appreciate you. You had a great time, working with you, but it's, we can't have our ratings drop because of you, so it's a business." But the interesting thing, though, that was put out recently, Drew Brees said in the tweet, was that, basically he said that he's not ruling out a return to football. He doesn't know what he's going to do now with his time, as he was just a broadcaster for one season with NBC. Now he's thinking about returning to football. So could he see a comeback we saw Tom Brady retire and come back like literally a month or two later after his retirement, maybe not even that. And now Drew Brees saying that he might come back to football, which I find very interesting. The Saints obviously have established their quarterback room with Jameis Winston, but I don't think Drew Brees going back to the Saints would make much sense right now, since his depleting arm strength kind of is what hurt them the last couple of years, especially throughout the playoffs. Obviously them being beneficiaries of some bad calls. But Saints fans, just suck it up. Our team blew a 20-3 lead in the Super Bowl. We're fine. The Falcons. You guys are still crying over a call that happened like 2 or 3, 4 years ago. Get over it. So Drew Brees is thinking about returning to football. I think it'll be interesting to see what happens with that. If he comes back to the NFL, what team could it possibly be for? Maybe, I don't know. He most likely be as a backup. I don't see him starting because most teams right now have their QB positions set up and established for the most part. So I don't really see a team that he would slide in right now and just automatically go and start. Maybe a team like the Texans, I guess. They're still trying to establish some consistency at the quarterback room. They traded Deshaun Watson to the Browns, of course, for all those draft picks that they used. One of them was used to select Derek Stingley, cornerback for LSU. Great pickup for the Texans right there. But as they're in full rebuild mode. Why not go sign Drew Brees for 1 year, see what he can do? I don't know. It's just something interesting. You guys let me know what you think in the comments, where Drew Brees is going to head, or what he's going to do with his life. Is he going to try to get back into broadcasting somewhere else, or is he going to come back to football, go back to the Saints? What's the deal? You guys let me know what you think in the comments. What's going to happen with Drew Brees? Obviously, he was the NFL's all-time leading passer for some time, until, of course, Tom Brady broke that record like he has so many others. And he's got, of course, took the Saints to a Super Bowl some years back. But the Saints the last couple of years they've lost in the playoffs, and so get Jameis Winston back there. He's trying to prove himself in the league. So it'd be really interesting to see how that all plays out. As we move on to the 2022 season, a lot of coaches right now are on the hot seat. I believe that going to this year, if their team doesn't take the next step, then their job could be in jeopardy, right? To name a few, you could have Matt Rule in Carolina, Cliff Kingsbury in Arizona. A lot of coaches right now. Even Nick Sirianni with the Eagles. After his first year. And it was just his first year with the Eagles, but still the team underperformed. They did trade for AJ Brown in the draft, so they tried to bolster that receiver room, help Jalen Hurts out. But I still think the Eagles are a few moments away from. They still got some work to do before they can call themselves contenders again. The Washington football team, Ron Rivera, I think he's on the hot seat. I don't think, Washington has not. They have still yet to make that leap. They drafted well, Chase Young, all those guys on the defense, but their offense is still struggling, and they're still one of the more inconsistent offenses in the league. So I think Ron Rivera is on the hot seat, definitely for Washington. And I also think, Cliff Kingsbury, like I said, is on the hot seat as well. Arizona has not taken the leap yet that they were supposed to. Obviously, they drafted Kyler Murray a couple years back with the first pick in the draft, but he is yet to pan out. Arizona, they started off the year 7-0 last year, and then they just completely derailed. They derailed the whole rest of the season. Murray got hurt, but the team just did not bounce back from that. They missed the playoffs. And Cliff Kingsbury's job is in question right now in Arizona. He used to be at Texas Tech for a while, coached with Patrick Mahomes. He was a quarterback there, and then they brought him to the NFL. The Cardinals hired him and say, "Hey, we want your offensive mind here. We want you to come to our team. We were trying to win a Super Bowl, right?" It has not worked. It hasn't worked. The Cardinals have no identity. They have no identity at all. They've struggled over the last couple of years, especially with Kyler Murray at quarterback. Even they went and got not Deshaun Watson, but DeAndre Hopkins from the Texans in a trade that the Texans really were not thinking about. They traded for him. They traded him for a bag of chips, pretty much. But moving on through that, the Cardinals have not done anything. So it'll be interesting to see how this year turns out. I mean, they traded for Marquise Brown from the Ravens. You guys all know Hollywood Brown. He's Antonio Brown's cousin, played all college football, Oklahoma with Baker Mayfield, all those guys, great receiver, great speed, but he just didn't really pan out in Baltimore. I don't think the offense fit him very well, and he just kind of disappeared and with the Ravens. So they traded him to the Cardinals, try to get some draft picks in exchange, and so they could try to work it out, because overall, the Ravens are another team, to watch out for. John Harbaugh, he's been there a while. Of course, he's won a Super Bowl with the Ravens back in 2012 with Flacco, but now, Lamar Jackson, and I mean, they struggled with injuries last year, and you could make the argument that they could have made a run if not for those injuries, but the team is still lacking in a lot of positions, especially the receiver position. They just have not had any consistency at that position at all. So they still need that true number one wideout. To win in the NFL, you need that true number one wideout. That guy that you go to, he's going to make the catch, right? All teams need that guy, and if you don't have that guy, you won't win very much, especially in the playoffs. So in order to make that leap, that's one of the things the Ravens need to do. But I definitely think the Cardinals are on Cliff Kingsbury's on the hot seat. Kyler Murray as well. I mean, he briefly deleted all his social media stuff. He was going through something, but obviously he said that there's nothing going on with him and the Cardinals. They're fine. That, like I said, they wouldn't go trade for Marquise Brown to get him some receiver helps, and now they have Rondale Moore, DeAndre Hopkins, and Marquise Brown is your three main receivers, which is not a bad receiving group. I mean, obviously DeAndre Hopkins is going to be suspended for a while for he was caught with the PED use, performance enhancing drug use, so he's going to be suspended for 6 games, I believe, for the 2022 season. But he will be returning, of course, after his suspension is over. So how are the Cardinals going to do those first 6 weeks? Who knows? But it's the Cardinals got to be careful though. Cliff Kingsbury has got to be careful because his job is in jeopardy, I believe. And another name that people aren't talking about right now is Kyle Shanahan with the 49ers. I mean, we saw this guy. He's moved around. He's known for his offensive mind, right? Him and Sean McVay, those, they're known for their offensive minds. But, Sean McVay recently has been better. He has moved more. He's obviously been to 2 Super Bowls, won one of them. Last year, of course, they traded for Stafford, and they just bolstered up that team. Got Von Miller, got Odell. They win. They said, we're winning it all. We're going to put in all the chips, and they did, and they won it. But I definitely think that Kyle Shanahan's job is in danger. If the 49ers do not turn things around within the next year or two, I think Shanahan's out. I really do. I mean, because you haven't been able to win consistently. You have your quarterback room has been struggling. Garoppolo, the talent is there. I mean, Deebo Samuel, of course. We saw that he was going to request a trade and all this stuff a few weeks ago, right? All that stuff going on. And, so the defense is still good. They got a great defense, great talent on the defense and on the offense as well. But, it's just got to find that consistency, and it's consistency is key. Consistency is key, especially in the National Football League. And if you're not a consistent team, you won't win. If you're consistently on a bad basis, then you're not, well, of course you're going to lose, right? Just look at the Jacksonville Jaguars, the Detroit Lions. That's why they have the number 1 pick like every year. But I just think that Kyle Shanahan needs to turn things around in San Fran. If they don't figure out the quarterback room, who's the starter, who's not, we don't know if it's going to be Garoppolo. We don't know if it's going to be Trey Lance. We don't know what they're going to do. If it were me, I mean, start Trey Lance, get rid of Jimmy Garoppolo. Obviously, he hasn't performed for you the last couple of years, especially in the playoffs. I mean, they blew a 2010 lead a couple years ago in the Super Bowl 54 against the Chiefs. So, obviously, you have to make a change. You have to make changes with that roster, and the 49ers are in a place right now where they don't want to be, because they keep losing consecutively in the postseason. So they've got to figure out a way to bolster up that roster to compete with the Rams, who are next door. up in Los Angeles. So those are my main points today for the podcast, guys. Just wanted to get into that, as we move close throughout the offseason, moving close towards training camp and rookie mini camp. It's just kind of starting through, for all the teams. Got the rookies out there. They're working, getting drills in, throwing, running, all those types of things. Just trying to get their feet wet in the league. So you guys can, make sure you're keeping up with that. The season is not that far away. I mean, we start in September, of course. A lot of changes will be made, of course. As you guys know, the Fox broadcasting crew of Joe Buck and Troy Aikman will now be on ESPN on Monday Night Football. That's weird, right? Amazon is going to be doing a new broadcasting thing with the NFL. They're doing a partnership. So it's going to be a weird season next year. We don't know as far as the teams, how they're going to shape out. A lot of moving parts this offseason, with Tyreek Hill and, all those guys. Devontae Adams went to the Raiders. The AFC West is starting to get stronger. And you still got your teams at the bottom of the barrel as well, or that are kind of trying to move up. Your teams like the Falcons, your teams like the Washington football team. The Washington Commanders. They keep changing their name like every year, I swear. Those bottom of the barrel teams, they're trying to, the Colts, heck, they went and traded for Matt Ryan. They think they're gonna win the Super Bowl. So we'll see how that works out. See what Matty Ice can do up there. But yeah, those are my main points, guys, for the podcast today. Thank you for watching, listening. Make sure you subscribe, like, comment, share with your friends. Let me know what you think in the comments. Where Drew Brees is gonna head next, what he's gonna do. What's your thoughts on Jaire Alexander's contract extension? Is he worth it? Are the Packers paying him too much? What's going on with that? Just let me know, guys, in the comments. I'm here. See you guys next time on the podcast.